Hello and welcome to the Chronically Healthy Life show. When you hear the word chronically, do you automatically associate it with chronic disease? We all do. It's been programmed right into us. But what if we flip that whole idea on its head? Let's discover how we can create chronic health in our bodies, minds, finances, relationships, and our whole lives. Let's jump right in. I'm Kristy Johnson. Andy and Minna are suffering terribly on a vacation to Mexico this week. Shucks. So I have invited my dear friend Juliet Clark of Superbrand Publishing to co-host tonight's show. Welcome, Juliet.
Thank you for having me this evening. How fun to co-host a show that's not my own.
I'm loving having you here. It's always so much fun when we do things.
Well,
Hey,
thank you. It is fun.
yes. Our main idea for tonight, we're going to be focusing on diet. And that word, diet, has so many connotations, positive, negative, and everything in between. And a lot of times I even feel like this gut glitch, like, ooh, diet. Like, I don't want to think about that. And my emotions kind of go to guilt and shame, which I don't think is very productive. But how do you feel when you hear that word, the D word?
So when I hear the D word, I feel like I'm being restricted or not abundant. It's just, it's one of those things where, I have to cut back. I have to do things that are uncomfortable. And so it doesn't last long usually. And I don't usually go on a diet, but there are parts of my diet that could use some improvement. But I just feel like I'm shutting down my abundance because I'm deprived. I feel deprived.
Oh, yes. Deprivation is the other D word that is directly connected. That is true. That is I think that's very unfortunate because really we all have a diet. We all have a diet. We have a diet of foods that we eat, foods we feed our kids. If we're just we even have a diet of things we read and things we listen to. But in terms of food and drink, beverages, we all have a diet.
Right. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree with that. And a lot of when you look around at a lot of what's going on with the diets, they all seem so extreme. Keto, people go on keto and then they end up with the keto flu and they feel so bad that they don't continue. Or, other diets, there's always something, some fad diet. So liquid diets, carbs diets, which, bacon. I mean, yeah, I could do keto and eat bacon all day, but am I really going to lose weight? No, I'm going to break out and be icky. So, I think it's one of those things where, you have to be able to balance the diet and exercise in a really meaningful way. And it might not be cutting out things, it might be just cutting back things. But either way, you really have to be at the top of mind about how healthy is this diet? Is it going to be sustainable when I lose weight? Or am I going to, is it going to boomerang and come right back? I know a lot of people have a
Yes.
problem with that where they lose it and then they gain back more. So, it's really looking at what you're eating and how you're eating it.
Absolutely. And the we all know that it changes every time we turn around. They're saying, recommending something different. I think it's really a lot about listening to our own bodies because, like, for example, I do not do well with dairy, but if I don't eat it, I just feel fine. So I think it's really a matter of listening. And that is what we're going to talk about today with our guest, Karie Cassell, author of The Domino Diet. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Kids Corner. So I bet you that you struggle getting your kids to drink water and trying to get them away from sodas and those electrolyte drinks that are really just a bunch of sugar. So I have a quick drink this, not that solution that your kids will like. And I'm going to recommend a brand. It's the Ultima brand of electrolytes. This blue raspberry flavor I really like because when you put it in your water, it turns it blue. But it's not blue from food coloring. It's blue from spirulina, which is very, very healthy for our bodies. And the electrolyte effect really goes down into that cellular dehydration that our bodies typically have. We're so mineral deprived now that we really need to do something to boost that. So this is a really simple way to get your kids to drink it because it's blue, and they won't be embarrassed around their friends thinking they're drinking something different. And it tastes good without the sugar. So that's my tip for this week. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Today, I would like to welcome the fabulous Karie Cassell. After witnessing almost every diet fraud and trend imaginable, and eventually facing her own health challenges, Karie began to notice more gaps in the flawed diet and health industry. Her passion to put the heel back in health sent her on a quest to discover the missing pieces with her Life Mastery certification. Taking things beyond the symptom level to the root causes, Karie turned her own mess into a message and created a complete turnaround for individuals with a new formula in her program and her international bestseller, The Domino Diet, How to Heal You from the Inside Out. Welcome, Karie. I'm so happy to have you here. Is she here?
Yeah, I think we're having some tech difficulties. So you know what? While we have the tech difficulties and we get her back online, I'm going to share a little bit from Karie's book. This is Karie's book, The Domino Diet, and my company published her book. And what I was what amazed by in this is I found out a lot of things that I didn't know about dieting. For instance, your body renews itself every 120 days. So I tried, because I'm a major sugar whore, you guys, like crack, heroin, like that's what sugar is to me. I tried with Karie's help getting off sugar for 120 days. And it was a really tough experience because first of all, I went through withdrawals, which I didn't expect. But with Karie's support, I was able to hold on to that no sugar, zero sugar for over 4 months. And it was really an amazing, amazing journey. So Karie, can we hear you? She's here. We just can't hear her.
Oh, well, let me ask you, Juliet. I'm quite certain that that coming off of sugar is very similar. I've heard this many times to coming off of a drug like people in rehab do.
Mm-hmm.
And so beyond that, when you started to get past that, how did you notice that you were feeling?
So, you mean once you get through the withdrawals, I was feeling better, but it was very, very incremental. I almost feel like your body had to heal along the way, so it wasn't like you instantly feel better. But and I will just tell you, I quit drinking when I turned 30, and I went through withdrawals then. So I really did feel like you're right. It was like getting off of drugs or alcohol or something like that. It was very intense. You know, that's the same things. You don't sleep, there are a lot of things. You're grumpy and you're craving. You really crave that thing. So that's where Carrie's support was just invaluable because you jump into it and you think, oh wow, this is happening to me. Is there something wrong? And with her support, she tells you like this is very normal. Keep it up. Drink lots of water. Do all those things. So do we have Carrie back
No, I think our producer's working with her.
yet?
So
Okay, good.
I know
I
tech
didn't want to make a
difficulties.
didn't want to make the show all about me, but yeah, that was a really valuable lesson of this book. And I think as you go through, the one fabulous thing about this book is Karie has such a great sense of humor. So it's not like I mean, it's a serious diet book. It has serious intentions with it, but it's also funny. It's very humorous. And one of the people she healed was her husband. So imagine
Mm.
like being there. Like I know when I was married, my husband didn't want to hear anything about the diet. It was like I would clear out everything because he said he was going on a diet. And then 10 days later, he'd bring all these snacks in and he'd be mad because, there's nothing in the house to eat. There's
Yeah.
Karie.
There's Hi, Karie. You're here.
Okay,
Woohoo!
do you hear me?
We can
Yes,
hear
we can,
you.
Oh,
Welcome.
good. Wow,
and we
yeah.
can see you.
Yay, technology. I mean, I'm very grateful for it. But it's funny because as soon as you said the word diet, it went, "Grr."
The
That's so
computer
funny.
doesn't like the word either.
So, Karie, I
Well,
was sharing the story about how you helped me through my sugar addiction. So, take it away and tell us about your book. Do you have questions for us?
yes, I do, because Karie, I love that you call yourself a dietitian on a mission. And that you're bringing the heel back into health. I love that take on diet. It takes all the negativity out of it. I
Well,
just,
same as the concept of chronically healthy. I mean, it's a pivot of words. Even the word eating disorder, calling it disordered eating, it just kind of softens things, right? And I had a struggle to put the word diet on the cover of my book. I mean, that was a journey for
mm,
me to kind of, for me, I kind of seen it in like a dream or some sort of occurrence for me where I seen the Domino Diet. And then I kind of argued with myself. I'm not putting that word on there. It's a 4-letter word. Another kind of 4-letter word. And I sat with it for I don't know what length of time until I realized, oh my gosh, the true meaning of the word diet comes from the Greek word dieta, which
mm.
means a way of life. And I thought, gosh, it's only the last 3 decades that it's become this 4-letter word, as I said before, that's not so positive. And so if I'm helping restore the true meaning of the word diet, that became a badge of honor. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to put that on there proudly and make that part of my mission. And it just happened to rhyme with dietitian. So I took on that. But the word heal inside the word health is something that stood out to me since I was 13, I recall. I'm reading the Nutritional Almanac book. If anybody knows what that is, it's sort of like a nutrition Bible. At 13, I'm reading it like it's Vogue magazine, and I thought that was normal. And then it wasn't until a girlfriend of mine who heard me in my biology class with my teacher asking all these questions about vitamins, and I was answering them. Vitamin E and vitamin D, and what do they do? And she kind of leaned forward and she said, "How do you know this?" And I said, "How do you not know this?" So it called me, and the word heal and diet has just been my path for, gosh almighty, it's 30 years as a dietitian, 10 years in alternative medicine. So
Wow.
that's a long time in wellness. So that's giving you an age, so to speak, right now, too, through menopause and you name it. So there we are. I'm in my mid 50s. There we go. And a lot of that has
Right
come
out
along.
there.
So I've got to imagine that reading the nutrition almanac has got to be a heck of a lot healthier for a woman than Cosmo.
You know, yeah, I probably did brush past that whole concept of, although the magazines were a little kinder back then, I would say.
They were, yes.
Right. And this, however, is at a time that I remember witnessing my mamé, my grandma, mamé in French, eating a cinnamon bun. She just made them. They came out of the oven and she's biting into it. And she's so sheepishly saying, "I'll go on my diet on Monday." And I remember I probably was 11ish thinking, what on earth is this diet thing? It sounds like prison. I wanted to save her in the worst way. So my ear was catching that too back then. And I
Mhm.
so I do believe it's a calling for me. And seeing all sides of the spectrum in terms of diet.
Yes.
And like you said, every fad, every type of diet, really, since the 80s, I've seen a few. That's for
Oh
sure.
yeah, we all yes, all of us in the over 50 crowd have seen the don't eat any fat, don't eat any carbs,
Yeah.
eat only
Yeah.
bacon, like Juliet said.
And then you look around at all these fad drugs that are out there as well, where everybody's on it, and then 10 years later the FDA comes out and says, "Oh, it causes death," and all these other things, and it's like, wait a minute, you didn't check that out before people took it?
Yeah, I
Well,
call it
that and
the battle of the macronutrients, and that they continue to cycle through carbs,
mhm.
protein, fats, carbs. And I could tell you more, but I tell you what, it's a battle that is confusing people, and it's really disheartening, I think. And that's why the heel was falling out of the word health for me
Mhm.
at one point in my journey. And I thought that it's time to put a quest into this and go to the root, as you illustrated in the beginning.
Quest. That is awesome. That we all have a quest going on. I know part of our show is, balancing wellness is about every part of your life. And it's not just about your physical health. It's about
Yeah,
everything. And what you're talking about, you're shifting a mental perspective, which is going to then you can't really shift from the body to the mind. You have to go the other way. You have to
mhm.
make a perspective shift, and then your body will go along. Because when Juliet made the decision to do the 120-day reset, it started with a decision and
Yes,
knowing she needed to do that for her body and was willing to allow her body to go through that process. That's a big thing.
it is.
Yes.
It's a decision with a vision. If you can compound it that way, then you are setting yourself up for the chronically healthy, not the chronically disease. And it's the vision part that was missing in my curriculum beforehand. And I was on a treadmill of, what are your symptoms? Here's your pill. Here's your diet. Symptom, pill, diet.
Right.
And there was no talking of the root. And I think I heard Juliet speaking about my husband journey, and so he was having issues like high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and high sugars, and I wasn't really having the impact anymore. I didn't feel like it was landing, or it would only be for so long and it would fall. So it was short lived. What's going on? How am I going to help him? I see one foot in the grave. My own health was starting to become in question, and I thought, there's got to be another way. And then I began to realize through the other hat that I put on, which is life coach or life mastery, when they have a vision for what the health is going to serve, the health comes along for the journey.
Mm-hmm.
In his case, he wanted to be a singer in a band. And although he was a corporate guy and still is, but corporate guy kind of checking his soul at the door, picking it up on the way home,
Mm.
barely. And then emotional socialization of emotional drinking or eating or scrolling or spending or whatever for people who are in the self-sabotage of not really living their vision.
Mm-hmm.
They become diseased and it morphs into symptoms to get their attention. And so once we realized, oh, he wants to be a singer, I tell you what, the way that he approached it, and he ends up standing now in front of people in a band, he literally comes to me. And it was within a 2-week process that this all takes place. But he comes to me and he says, so what do I have to do to look good in this black outfit on stage or to sing better? And I thought, the same thing I've been saying for 10 years. Eat better and move more. But it landed at a different pitch.
Mm-hmm. He
You
was
always have to, oh, sorry, you always have to remember that when you're proactive at work, you're proactive. When you're at home, it's nagging.
And yes, and when you're a dietitian and a wife, then you're just a food cop. And nobody wants that. So I had to really find a new perspective, as you said, and I
Mm.
found one, which was have people become vision driven, and it changes the perception. They hear it a different pitch, and then they have this long standing desire behind it, and
Yes.
then it it begins at the mindset. So that's what you were sort of alluding to with Juliet. And I don't know what her vision was at the time. I just know that it worked. And she was starting to put this into place. There's a reason for the 120 days, but I think we'll be talking about that afterwards. Goes with this.
Yes, yes. Well, I think that it's just so important to realize for people, I think, are moving more into this more holistic, spelled WHOL, with whole in it. Like we're a whole being. We're not just it's not just your stomach that needs to be fed, and
otherwise
the guilt.
It's emotional eating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it spirals into the guilt, shame, and then it becomes this whole ugly thing. And then it's I've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
We all have seen it like that.
And I'm not exempt to just, you don't slap on the title of dietitian and then all of a sudden you get this whole pass. You don't get cravings. You don't have traumas. So I get to walk the walk. I just happen to have a passion for strategizing and this mission that helped me navigate. And, I look for solutions versus just land in the emotional eating part of emotional eating. Mm-hmm. But I didn't understand at the time, like the dietitian had alone, was what are you eating? Here's the carrots for your emotional eating, without talking about the emotion. So you've just addressed that. What about the guilt? What about all these other emotions that go with it? And I actually have a pivot on the word emotional eating as well, because there's a greater side of emotional eating too. You're actually never not in an emotion. Right now I have an emotion going on. You have an emotion going on. You're never not with emotions. So even when you're grateful eating, it's an emotion. It's just a pivot to think of that as a more positive attitude towards eating. And so if we keep labeling emotional eating in a negative tone, like I alluded to earlier too, I'm guilty of, then we still wear this stigma. And yet there's never not an emotion. So going to that grassroots means, what triggered it? Was it the fight with your boss? Well, then don't we think, we have to talk about relationships then. Mm-hmm. Was it that you just feel like you're so discontent at work, you're on autopilot? Then we better talk about your career. So there's more of this additional piece that we can do when we can throw on what I call a life coach hat. And there are 4 areas that I look at.
What are the 4 areas?
Like, I pause and let you talk? It's like, keep on going.
No, I need to tell
we don't need to talk. Just tell us.
Okay. Well, think of 4 wheels on a vehicle. That's the best way for me to describe this, I feel. We don't pick a favorite tire, but we do know that we need all 4. So we have our health, our wealth, our relationships, and our career / purpose. If you're feeling like retirement is your endeavor, well, then purpose or vocary. And if one tire is running flat, your vehicle's out of balance. Doesn't matter which one. And my past would have been, maybe I'm guilty of focusing on my career too much. And then maybe relationship was neglected, running flat. So in either way, if you're not focusing on the connection of all 4, we tend to run flat. If I only focus on my health and not my relationship, same idea, then it's only short-lived. Same as your wealth. We want actually to enjoy our wealth with what? And
our health.
Yeah. And if we're not seeing the full picture and inflating all 4 tires, there's a likelihood for running out of balance, going in dis-ease, and then that leads to disease. Mm-hmm. So I look for the connection between them. And health, of course, is a bias of mine, or a favorite tire, I guess we could say. But there's no longer, they're inseparable now. That I look at the full picture, the whole, as you said.
Yes, yeah. That makes complete sense to me. And I know we're going to talk about this a little later, but the whole 120-day reset basically gives you, you can reset everything in 4 months, in the 120 days. If it's all a matter of strategizing, like you said. That's an amazing idea. That is so empowering, that whole idea.
Right. Yes.
That we don't have to deprive ourselves of everything. Like, I'll never eat ice cream again, and you don't, and stop thinking that way. And
yeah.
Really jump on. Karie, can you talk a little bit about that 120 day? Because it's not just I'm setting my goal for 120 day. It's actually something that's going on at the cellular level in your body, correct?
Yeah. Our red blood cells last 120 days, 4 months, 16 weeks. And I like using them as a marker for health, because when you go to see your doctor, they're looking at all the vitals. Oh,
excuse me, Karie. I'm gonna have you pause, and we're gonna return to this topic. But the producer has informed me we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come right back. So stay tuned, please.
Brace yourself. Okay.
Hello, we are Mutts and Meows Rescue, a 501c3 nonprofit, foster-based, no-kill group. Mutts and Meows Rescue pulls dogs and cats from surrounding shelters in the greater Houston area. We even pick up dogs and cats abandoned on the streets. Mutts and Meows Rescue is foster-based and rely on your donations to keep rescuing. To know more about us is to know more about our furry friends and help them find their forever homes. Come visit us at Mutts and Meows Rescue on Facebook today and decide how you can make a difference.
Welcome back to the Chronically Healthy Life show. Let's just jump right back in, because I interrupted Karie and we're talking about how our bodies reset at a cellular level every 120 days. So continue, please, Karie.
Pleasure. As I was mentioning, our red blood cells last 120 days. So not all of our cells. We have different cells in our body, of course, and some are quicker, some are longer. Like our bones will take much longer. But when we go to see our physician and they're doing all of our vitals, we don't really get that you're well and you're good until you go off to the lab, as a rule. And what are they grabbing from the lab but red blood cells when they're measuring your blood? So I love to use that as a marker of health and a time frame. So right now, you and I, all of us, are right now with a brand new batch of red blood cells today. And in 120 days, they'll be gone and the new ones will be born. And so when we're diagnosed or experiencing symptoms, or even want to up-level our health, I love using that span of time, because honestly, that means our red blood cells, they communicate to every other cell. They go to every organ in the body from head to toe. They are affecting our mood or our overall health. So I think to myself, if we can change the way we think, how we breathe, how we eat, and how we move, we are going to up-level them. We already know that healthier fats, for instance, strengthen the membranes of those red blood cells. We know antioxidants do the same. And most people don't catch this unless I emphasize it again. How we breathe matters. Because in our day-to-day, we tend to be at default into the fight-flight response. Probably the shallow breathing, our brain is reading. Even right now as I'm speaking, it's potentially flipping over to that side unless I breathe now calmly. Especially if you go through the nose, out through the mouth. Almost like AM and FM on your radio, it flips over. And we go into the rest, digest, create zone where serotonin exists. And a few other hormones too. So we literally are bathing ourselves in this bubble bath of serotonin and places of more creative thinking, more mindfulness upon our eating. Intuitive eating could be lumped into that category. So if we're thinking better, walking more, for instance, where more serotonin is, sleeping better, more serotonin. I mean, I'm emphasizing that one because we're more familiar with it. It just creates a better cellular system. So why not within 120 days, with all of that in mind, pardon the pun, we could up level, period.
Absolutely. That's, I loved what you said about simply taking a breath before you take a bite.
Yes.
And because so my former life as a teacher, we got a lunch half hour. And in that half hour, you not only included in there was getting all the kids out of your room and then having to go collect them. So it was basically and hopefully getting to go use the ladies because, we were expected to not do that when we were teaching robots, right? So
Yeah.
it was a horse down your lunch situation, to just try to get fill the hole and get back to it, and slowly. And then that became, because I taught for so long, I found myself always eating fast. And I love that. Just take a breath, take a breath,
Yes.
take a bite. And I've used that little tip. I love
Oh,
that
good.
tip.
Good. Well, literally, you're in the rest digest, right? The word digest is right in there. So if I'm in fight flight, I mean, if you know anybody who, like Juliet, you've been a runner, when you're running, you're not eating or you're going to have some other issues with your digestion. And so being able to just be aware, breathing, and it's moving into what's called the parasympathetic system, AM, FM radio, I'm trying to refer to. You're flipping over to the rest, digest, create, and voila, we absorb our nutrients better, we'll fill up quicker, we're in mindful eating. And it's such a simple thing, but sometimes those small hinges move big doors. And I think we've somehow managed to forget this. And it's a big element to bring back in. Means some strategizing cooking meals maybe so that we have more time to enjoy our food. But I have another theory if you want to hear it.
Yes, I do.
I do. And I want to ask you a question about that compared to the emotional eating as well, because if you're stopping and thinking,
Mhm.
you're not emotional
Mhm.
eating.
Absolutely. So addressing that, it does address the other point as well. I think one of the reasons, first of all, the fast pace of eating is we're in fight flight. So our default, and that is a great, wonderful, intelligent system to have to veer out of traffic if there's an accident, or to run from a mammoth. But there's no mammoths now, so there's
Or to teach
not
in
a
a classroom.
right. So there's not as much need for that default as we are almost infiltrating ourselves with, be it watching the news while eating, unless it's puppies like we just seen on the commercial break. I'm not going to be in anything but the fight flight response, because even if it's not happening to you, the chemistry in your body is acting like it is. And so when we're eating fast and sometimes feeling guilty about eating, because that goes many, many cultural thinkings around food. Nowadays, we have guilt around eating. Then we're going to consume it not only guilty, but in a fast pace. It's constrictive. Whereas the opposite side, the greater side of emotional eating, when we do breathe in and we flip over to FM, we can be in gratitude. Heck, my dad had to ration a can of beans for 3 days when he was younger. I have an abundance. Just flip it. And I think we're almost afraid to be grateful for the food because we think if we're too grateful, we can't trust ourselves to overeat. But it's actually on the contrary. That if we just embrace the fact and we are mindful and slow down, we will hear our brain and our stomach communicating better. You're full. The fast pace of eating, we don't always catch that as quickly. But if you're slowing down and enjoying it, then there's a good chance you will.
Yeah, you being in tune, listening, that's a big deal. I mean, if when you're running a half marathon,
Yeah.
if you were to twist your ankle or something like that, you kind of need to know that and not keep pounding on it and damaging your leg, so that makes sense to me with eating. You don't want
Right.
to
Yeah.
continue giving it damage. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And with a host of gastrointestinal disorders, heartburn, diverticular, there's a host it's kind of increased. I know there's a connection to just slow down and breathe and enjoy the smaller bites. And we would eradicate a lot of that, including heart disease, because heart disease is more susceptible under cortisol, which is a fat storing hormone, and it does increase the heart rate under the fight flight response.
That makes sense. It's so funny because, well, it does matter what you eat. I observe this, especially, I've observed this in a lot of different situations, but with kids, I noticed like the kids whose parents would pack them snacks like carrots and grapes and fruit juice instead of soda or water instead of soda and things like that were distinctly much more well-behaved than the kids who were eating a honey bun and pounding down a Coke on their recess break, and they were coming back into the room, and then they call them ADD and medicate them. And it's like, you're feeding them chemicals and sugar.
And I think I came into the session while you were talking about, was the sugar addictive? And there is a dopamine sort of a hit or cycle that goes with that. So absolutely, those kids are experiencing that as well.
Oh yeah.
It does make me think of my poor daughter way back when she would be going to school. She did say to me one time, "Mom, can I just not have a dietitian's lunch once?" It was kind of this opposite. And I began to realize, oh yeah, okay. There isn't really allowing a lot of flexibility if I'm taking this without the tree that bends a bit, the flexibility. So I began to realize that it was important to have this sort of 80-20 rule. That's the one I've adopted, and that works really well. So I would say to her, okay, you can go pick out 2 back at the day Lunchables, where I don't know what they are today is common, and she would be allowed to use it however she wanted, but that would be it after that grocery cycle was done. And it really taught me a lot about being more flexible.
Yes.
So I do that for myself. I have flexibility too.
Absolutely. I mean, Juliet and I were talking earlier about, you don't want to feel like if you're going to a wedding, oh God, if I eat the cake, you don't want to feel that way. You want to just partake in the joy and enjoy the whole thing, and, eat your sliver of cake and don't worry about it. And then because most of that 80% of the time you're staying focused and on the healthier style. So eat the cake, enjoy your life. If you go
back
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you know what though, with the lunches though, the kids' lunches, like if you start early, there's some good habits there. My kids to this day, my kids are 24 and 28. They do not drink Diet Coke. They don't like anything with bubbles because we pushed water at them since they were athletes. So, that's something that they carried into their later life as well. I can't get either of them to even take a drink of something carbonated.
Yeah. I always did that in my classroom. I absolutely forbade them to bring any soda into my classroom. And I told them, you spill, and because they were little, you guys spill, and then I have bugs. And if you guys want bugs crawling up your pants legs when you're trying to read a book, okay, but I don't really want that. They got it, and they brought water. And
now we know why kids no longer read. No.
They did in my classroom because they were drinking water and
there's 365 days in a year, and if a person only once a week kind of blurred the lines a little bit, that's only 52 days. 52 weeks. So I just think that it's okay.
Yeah.
But you're talking about water, so I kind of want to show my little glucose ones
here.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. So these are seen. Okay. This is our circulation. This is representative of our blood. And in that, blood, of course, has nutrients, all sorts of things from iron to oxygen, but it also has sugar, fat, salt. And this is the viscosity, the consistency of what we want. And imagine your brain saying, hey, I could use some oxygen up here. Oh, okay, I'll be there in a moment. And it happens quickly because it's moving this way. But for some, they are moving slower because their diet is not up to par. It's dehydration, it's higher sugar, it's higher salt, sugars, and our blood is thicker. And what if the brain is saying, hey, could use some oxygen? Or, okay, I'll be there in a bit. I mean, it's not going to happen quickly. So when we're thinking about going for a walk or whatever the case might be, it's a little bit more daunting. And this is partly why. But in that 120 days, we can get everything back to this with the hydration and the sleeping and watching what we eat and moving. And to me, that is just bringing the hope into this versus the diagnosis that, yeah, you can change things. So I'm tooting on that again because I think it's really important.
So what would you say, let's give us some tips. Like, what would be your top 5, say, tips for where to start? If you're starting right at the beginning, at ground zero, what would be, drinking water is probably number one, but get hydrated. But
It is up there, and it could be one or two. To me, the order of the other one I'm going to mention, they're nip and tuck. I call it the Domino Diet challenge, to go 120 days to adopt these things, and it's more about what to do versus not to do. And it's a concept of crowding out cravings, I call it as well. So first off, proper sleep. It connects to everything to have good sleep hygiene. 7-ish hours, 8-ish hours for adults, sometimes more for younger kids. Older adults tend to need a little less, but that's not always a given. And it sets us up for more serotonin. Things are a little less daunting. We actually produce more of what's called leptin hormone versus ghrelin hormone. Leptin will make you feel fuller. Ghrelin will make you feel hungrier. So good sleep. It's the first setting us up for our thinking and the whole 9 yards of that, right? The next to that would be hydration, that we're drinking adequate water. And honestly, 8 ounces, 8 cups, 8 ounces is a cup in a day is a great golden rule. But I found that starting with 6 cups is a realistic goal. And to go a little bit off a little bit here, but it's the color of your urine that actually tells you whether you're hydrated or not, which provides your own customization. Because I don't know about you, if you've been through menopause, hot flashes are a real deal. And for some, and that makes for more dehydration. So in any case, your water intake, your sleep intake. Then I move into talking about activity. Because when we're more active, we tend to make better food choices. And I start with 10 minutes a day as my golden rule for people. Because nobody on the planet has told me they don't have time for 10 minutes. And if you do more, great, but 10 minutes a day, and we're producing more serotonin. And then I move into the fruits and vegetables, having 3 to 4 servings of vegetables and 1 to 2 of fruit. A serving is a half cup. It's easy to do once you start to match it with each meal. I have a rule for myself, a vegetable at each meal. I like to have maybe a fruit at one of the snacks, maybe both snacks. And it allows you to hit those marks. And it crowds out the cravings, because many times our cravings are from inadequate nutrition or inadequate certain food groups like carbohydrates. So we're guaranteeing those things, and we begin to set up the foundation. Then we move into putting up the walls and nuts and bolts after the fact, that when I meet with people.
Can we go back to the color of your urine?
Yeah.
Because I think I know what you mean, but I want validation. So what would indicate dehydration?
So the way I look at it is to say apple juice color, The normal, like the more condensed looking, it's yellower. Because a fluorescent yellow is different. So let's talk amberish yellow where it's darker.
Mm-hmm.
And that usually means you're quite dehydrated. Don't rely on thirst alone. That's a really good suggestion that if you feel thirst and you see that, yes, you're very, very dehydrated. When you're seeing clear, you're likely hydrated. When you're seeing fluorescent yellow, you might have just had a B vitamin. That's what will happen. It's just kind of how your body's processing vitamins. And that shouldn't last, but it's a good barometer. And there's stages in between that. A lot of my athletes, we get them to make sure that before they attend events that they become very familiar with that barometer of what their urine color looks like. Not to waterlog, like overconsume water before their event, but not to arrive dehydrated either. So that's a good gauge.
So Juliet, how are you going to hydrate before you do your half marathon? Oh no, Karie, you're doing the half marathon.
Karie's doing it. I used to do marathons.
Yeah, how will I do that? Well, just like that, I will. I'll ensure it's in Vegas, so I mean, there's going to be some variables potentially, but I'm behaving before.
Okay, and no alcohol during the race. It's always amazing when you're in a race like that, especially a marathon. The things people are handing you. I remember someone handed me a Coke, a Coca-Cola, and I was like, it was like mile 18, and I was like, oh yeah, I only drink diet. And the person was like, honey, you're drinking sugar today. Like, you need it. So you have to really, really hydrate when you're running.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and swimming too. That's my preferred. Preferred is
people.
swimming.
I was a swimmer. People don't understand that when you are training, you sweat when you swim, and it's a horrible feeling to be wet and sweating.
And
oh my gosh, I used to get so hot.
Yeah, and you don't have your shirt right to detect. Oh, look at how much I'm sweating. It's a more difficult one to gauge, definitely, and not as convenient to have water bladders as you can with running. When you're swimming, you have to have it at the edge of the pool and so forth.
What are you saying? You can't pee in the water? Is that a rule?
Well, Karie, this conversation is just fantastic. I could go on for another hour, but how can our viewers find you?
Well, I would say that anything the Domino Diet will usually somehow have my name surfacing and so forth. I welcome calls and texts, and my number 780-814-2983, and I think there's a link being popped in for that. My name, Karie Cassell, there's the website associated to my name, so that'll usually help you find me. There's a QR code, I think, that's popping into the chat as well. And I welcome that kind of conversation to really customize for people. And did I mention it's a passion of mine?
No, that didn't come across at all.
You are going back in health, let me tell you, mark my words.
I love that. I think that is a fantastic mission. It really is. It's brilliant. Yes. Well, thank you so much. And to our viewers, we're going to take a short break and stay tuned. And Juliet and I will be right back.
Thank you so much, ladies. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Karie.
Thank you.
We all hope to age gracefully so we can enjoy later years with energy, vitality, and good health. But so often with age, our bodies show signs of things just aren't the same as they used to be. Our energy, skin, healing recovery time, and sleep all go downhill. If you had physical trauma that happened to your body like I did, this happens much faster. I felt like a 30-year-old trapped in an 80-year-old body. But do you remember as kids, the boundless energy we had, how fast we recovered? This is not because of getting old, but because of active stem cells inside our bodies. These are the cells that can generate and regenerate all the cells and structures in the human body. They are the building blocks of our organs, tissues, blood, and immune system. They also serve as an innate repair system everywhere inside the body. But as we get older, stem cell activity slows down, become less effective in repairing damage, and decline. By the age of 20, we only have 1 billion stem cells left. By 30, they decline by 60%. By 50, they decline by 75%. 60 by 9%. And by 80, we're lucky to have 50 million active stem cells. But what if we can naturally stimulate our bodies to reactivate and regenerate new stem cells through phototherapy without drugs. Now we can with our LifeWave X39 stem cell activation patches. Reclaim your youth and look younger, feel stronger, perform better, and heal faster. Get your patches now at lifewave.com/chronically healthy life. It's not anti-aging, it is reverse aging.
Welcome back, everybody. So, Juliet, can you hold up Karie's book again, The Domino Diet?
I can. You guys go grab it. It's at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple, Google, Target, Walmart, just pretty much any place you can buy books.
It is really good. And like Juliet said, Karie has a wonderful sense of humor, and it definitely comes across in the book.
Yes, it does. It's not your boring diet book. The chapter heads are hilarious.
Awesome. Juliet, I want to thank you for coming on and letting me put you on the spot here to co-host with me today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's so weird to be on hosting somebody else's show because I have my own.
Well, next time Minna and Andy can run it, and you and I'll go on vacation to some
There you
place.
go.
We have a girlfriend retreat.
There you go. Not Mexico, though. Not Mexico.
Maybe the Bahamas.
There you go.
Okay. Now, everybody, I'd like to remind you to join us here on Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can watch past episodes at watch.e360tv.com in the Vitality TV network or on our YouTube channel. If you'd like to know more about what we do and how we can help you live a chronically healthy life, visit us on our website at chronicallyhealthylife.com. Also, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or a question for Kids Corner, please comment on our Facebook page, Chronically Healthy Life, or email us at anything@chronicallyhealthylife.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Karie, thank you again for showing up. Juliet, it was really, really fun having you. Okay, everybody. Ciao. We'll see you next time.
I'm Dr. Audrey Tang, a chartered psychologist, and on my show, Mental Health Matters, we take a deep dive into all things mental health and well-being with the experts. So join us at 8 a.m. PST on Thursdays on the Fresh